Well, first off, and I know I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, bro. I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings.
The Milwaukee Bucks select Gary Trent from Ohio University.
Hey, man, I'm watching these cats dunk. They staring us up and down. I'm like, to me, that means you really want to fight.
How'd you get the nickname Shaq of the Mac?
I think I had 19 points. I didn't have any other buckets. I just had 9 dunks.
You can't say yourself, but who was the best dressed coming up when you were in the league?
You mean in the league?
Dirk Nowitzki was your rookie in Dallas.
I used to tell him, you don't get your game up, the white fans ain't going to support us. We need another Larry Bird. The biggest thing, man, was getting a kid early involved in something, like to get them to buy in to the responsibility of it. There was a lot of things I did not have as a child. So to me, I felt like I had to be in every phase of my son's life to help shape his thinking, to help shape his spirit, to help shape his understanding. That was my first night as a drug dealer.
What were you doing at 3:17 a.m. in your mom's Cadillac? And how did this inspire you to raise Gary, Garrison, Grayson, and Graydon?
Well, in all actuality, man, that was the first night. It's kind of deep because that was the first night my mom really showed me how to cook, you know? And that was the first night she showed me how to cook crack. And it was kind of, a whole lot going on that night emotionally and just as a lost kid. And after she cooked it and it dried and got hard, she cut it and broke down what everything was. This is a 20. This is a 20. This is a 15 in the daytime. This is a 20 at night. So to her, it was, when she broke that down, man, it was just something that I learned that night, and she drove me around the corner and just dropped me off. That was really my first night ever. That was my first night as a drug dealer. It was just a real struggle in that time and era. My family was going through a lot. My dad had just got sentenced a life sentence, as a cocaine kingpin, first person in Ohio. So, every school I go to, all the administrators, they all know my story. All the kids, a lot of kids know it's all on the news. That's always stuck out to me as far as that car, because my mom used to do security at this mall in Upper Arlington late at night. So me and my sister would get in the car and I would put a tape in the car and we would just drive in the parking lot in circles, kind of like a racetrack, doing a bunch of right turns. And then sometimes I would go the other way and do a bunch of left turns. And that's really how I learned how to drive, man. My mom had like a 79 Fleetwood, right? And so we driving in circles around the parking lot and can go straight and do an L turn. Go straight, do an L turn. I had mastered the L turn, where you pull out an intersection and stop, turn the wheel all the way, and then hit the gas. So when my mom had dropped me off that night, I always just looked at the tape deck dashboard to check the time, because when she was doing security, it was always make sure we come back at this time, because after she do a round, she'd be done. So it was always a check the clock time in the car, right? I'd always could smell those fumes from them getting high in the house and all that. But now actually standing over the stove cooking it was a different level of dizziness and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Especially at like 14 years old and all that aroma boiling right into your face like that.
What was the moment when you got to high school? I heard that a coach found you on the playground and then basically was like, damn, bro, you good. Let's get you on the ball court.
It wasn't really that cut and dry, but
Okay.
My high school coach and a man I love to death. And really, it was the probably at the tip of the iceberg of where it was starting to save my life. You know what I'm saying? So to speak, Randy Cotner. I went to school, but I had missed a bus on the way home. And a couple of friends in the neighborhood was like, man, just ride with us. Come to Open Gym and ride with us. We'll give you a ride home. I was like, all right, cool. So, I went to Open Gym. And I was just an explosive athlete. I didn't really have any skill set or any of that. And coach was like, man, you look pretty athletic. You should come out for the team. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went out for the team a week or so later or whatever. I made JV, and it was the first time I had actually been on the team and whatnot. Come out, score 20 in the first half of JV, just really high energy, bunch of layups, putbacks and all that. So I only played 2 quarters, and then I got moved up to varsity that night. But it was still a lot of growing for me to do, and there was a situation on the team where a couple guys had already established themselves and, didn't want to give up the ball, give up their title. And that was where I really started playing basketball. People look at my son, and he had his dream since he was younger because he had structure and he had good education. My son went to private schools with 12-to-1 ratio, 12 students per teacher type ratio. And, I just always wanted the best for him. So he was able to have a dream and develop it and nurture it. And that's what he's been doing all his life. And that's what he's doing now, is following his dream. I didn't grow up under those type of circumstances. I didn't really believe in any of that. I just played sports to play sports, but I didn't have an understanding of McDonald's games and rankings. I was getting recruited. I didn't know what March Madness was or any of that. So, I was in a different space.
I guess you could say, like, some people grow up like weeds, some people grow up like flowers, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's funny that you say that, because here's the thing. We're all going to grow, right? But when you let a child grow like a weed, that means he's going to grow, but he's going to grow in all kind of directions. And he's going to grow and he's going to attach to anything a lot of times. Because if you look at weeds and vines, they'll attach to a tree, a wall, a car that's been parked there too long. And as humans, our social mentality is to be a part of something. Swim team, basketball team, or street gang, because it's human to be a part of something. That's why in prison, they put you in isolation, because it's inhumane. So as a child, when you're not a part of something, you navigate to what feels good or what sounds good or what's convenient.
And that's why you accepted the first scholarship offer you got, right?
Man, listen, the first offer wasn't even the word. So, I'm going through some stuff at home one night. I left my mom's household because we just got to the point where we just started physically fighting, and it was just getting too out of hand. It got to the point now where I move out and I'm living with my auntie, which is my mom's sister, but it's the same conditions as far as it's still a crack house household. Her and her husband were both getting high. But the difference was, when I lived with my mother, I lived in the city. We lived like hardcore, deadbeat, right in the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like trap city. When I lived with my aunt, the inside of the household was the same as far as the conditions, the mindset, and the mentality of the people. But when I stepped out the front door, there was no strip. There was no corners. There was no gathering to where people would come. This is the 80s, right? So in the 80s, as far as white people, they had to come to the hood and find somebody, like walking them down the street and try to convince them to, hey, take my money, buy something, I'll share it with you type of thing, because it wasn't diverse like that back in Ohio when I was coming up. Like, any white people that came over in our neighborhood, he was the police. I didn't care if you was dressed in construction clothes, if you was on the cable wire, you could be doing the sewer. In my neighborhood, everybody like, oh, that's the police. That's the police. No, they're working the sewer. It's still the police dressed up. But man, it's the cable guy. It's the police. Like, if you was white in our neighborhood, you was police. So in that point in time, people in the suburbs always had to find somebody in the hood to come cop for them, or it just wasn't going to happen. So when I lived out in the suburbs, it was just such a slow motion of life. I didn't have to maybe catch a felony today or get robbed today or rob somebody or shoot somebody today, because it just wasn't that type of environment. So that was probably the key to not just be in that hot water every day. You know what I'm saying? When you're living in a hood and it's a small, condensed area of a lot of violence and a lot of things going on within a few square blocks, every day it's like you're in hot water. It's always like hot. Police always speeding up and down. Somebody always overdosing. Somebody shooting. So to be removed from that environment, that was half the battle and helping really save my situation.
Yeah, because when you were coming up, you were conditioned to everything being one type of way. So when you got kind of taken out of that a little bit, every time you see a white man, you automatically assume, oh, it's a cop. And really, it's just because of the different situation you're in now. That wasn't the case.
Well, just living out there and living that life, man. I went to 8 different schools, our first 10 years of school. 8 schools my first 10 years. So my high school I spent 3 years at. So that was my last 3 years. So other than that, I was all over the city. When you're moving around like that, it doesn't seem like it's so much a part of your life. It doesn't seem like, now that I have my kids, they're in a school system, it's structured. When you come home every day, it's going to be like this and things of that nature. Whereas a lot of times, man, I'm just coming home floating. Once I get out of school, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how I'm going to eat. You know what I'm saying? I know what I'm going to do, though. If I can't eat, I know how to eat, and I know where to go get some money. Once you start as a child not living life, but start living in survival mode, where everything you do every day got to survive, that pain going to change you, and you're going to be something that people won't like, really.
Is that why you took that first scholarship offer? Because that was your ticket out? It didn't matter where it was?
I was having an argument with my auntie, and I was crying and all this extra stuff, and she was trying to kind of put me out a little bit, because she was feeling like, the money that probate courts had gave her to take custody of me, she should tell me it wasn't worth it. Like, this money ain't worth taking you. So we arguing over that. And I get a call, on the phone about 15 minutes later after we're done arguing, just sitting on my steps crying in the house. I get a call and it's Coach Hunter. So he talking to me on the phone. Now, I had got a letter from Ohio University like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, but you know how schools just send out that basic
feelers,
to everybody, and all they do is just change your name. Dear such and such. Yeah. And they give all the same message. And the coach, I don't even think it's a signature. It might be a stamp signature at the bottom. You know them first letters, right?
Yeah.
So they sent that first letter, and the coach was talking to me on the phone, and I asked him, I said, Coach, can y'all play in that tournament at the end of the season? Everybody playing, like Michigan playing, Ohio State playing, because that's all I knew, Ohio State, Michigan, right? Because I'm from Columbus. Yeah. So I'm like, can y'all play in that tournament? He said, the NCAA tournament? I said, yeah, that's what it's called. I'm like, oh, the big hoopla tournament, everybody talking about March Madness. He's like, yeah. He said, Gary, we could win a national championship. We get the right players. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, do y'all play on TV? He said, well, if we get into the conference championship or whatnot, and get to the NCAA tournament, we can get some TV games. So I said, okay, well, I'll come to OU. Just like that. He said, what? I said, I'm going to come to OU. He said, do you know what you're saying? I said, yeah, I'm committed. I'm going to come to OU. He said, you're committed. He says, I'm going to get a press release on this next week. I was like, all right. Now, mind you, this is summertime. I've never even met this man. I've never seen the campus. I don't know where school is at. I just was like, I need to go. The next step after high school is college. I need to get out of here. So he's having a call right at that whirlwind moment in my life. And I was like, yeah, I'll come to OU. Just like if your friend had called and said, hey, man, you want to come over and play some Madden? Yeah, I'll come over. It was just like that. And it was funny. A few weeks later, I'm playing in the summer league in Columbus. So I'm wreaking havoc in the summer league. I was a player coach, and anybody can tell you. And that's why I want everybody in the city to know my team was undefeated 2 years in a row, led the league in scoring and rebounding, and was dogging everybody in the league. It was the POW League. So I want everybody in Columbus, big shout out to y'all for me dogging y'all. Y'all know it. I come off the court. I had about 40, right? So this guy come up to me, he's like, how you doing, Gary? It's a nice game. I was like, oh, thank you. He's like, you know who I am? I'm like, no. He's like, I'm Coach Hunter. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, Coach? That's how I met the man right there. I met the man just like that, walking off the court. I'm thinking he's just congratulating me on the game. I'm giving him a handshake, and I'm walking by and like, yeah, hey, right? So I done committed my life to somebody. I don't even know who they are, and I meet them and keep walking, right? That's just how disconnected my life was from real life and real society and outside of what we knew and what we had going on.
I got to ask, was it more memorable scoring a quadruple double on Toledo Libby High School or ending your high school career with a loss because you broke the rim so bad there were no replacements?
Man, I'm going to go with the Toledo Libby because my high school team, it was me and my brother Rufus. He passed away of pancreatic cancer. So we were the only really, black guys on the team, right? So, Toledo Libby come up in the joint. They got like 14 brothers on the team. They dunking all the warm-ups. The cats on my team looking all nervous, right? Cats in Toledo Libby don't know who I am and how I get down. You know what I'm saying? Me and Rufus was always running the streets together after school. So, after games, we did everything. So they coming in there and the assistant coach say, hey, these boys from Toledo, you Gary Trent and Columbus, you ain't nobody to them. So, he hit me with a lot of gas right there. And I'm watching these cats dunk. They staring us up and down. I'm like, to me, that means you really want to fight. I'm in this new environment. They ain't getting down like that. Like, these guys ain't fighting. And they, all that. We fight after the game, all that. That's where I came from. But these guys, they a bunch of arguers and all this. So once I came out to the game, man, it was just, by the time halftime came around, and cats, they had that Patti LaBelle. They had a new attitude. You know what I'm saying? They had a new attitude, and I kept going forth with what I was doing, man. Partly with me not having skill in high school is what made me play so aggressive because I couldn't settle for a jumper if I was tired, or I couldn't settle for pulling up, just taking a shot to be taking a shot because I didn't feel comfortable and it was just going to look too awkward. So when I got the ball, I'm going straight to your head, and that's why I got that field goal percentage record because everything had to be attacking.
And it still stands to this day. It's crazy. How'd you get the nickname Shaq of the Mac?
So I coming from a funeral. I had missed a couple of practice. My uncle had passed, and I was coming from a funeral, and I hadn't been practicing with the team. So I think we had a game in Western Michigan. I think this Sports Illustrated writer named Hank or somebody came to the game. I think I had 19 points in that game because I had 9 dunks. Matter of fact, I had like 19 points because I had 9 dunks, and one of them was an and one. I didn't have any other buckets. I just had 9 dunks, just all the first half and second half. So that's where he came with the Shaq and the Mac name because I didn't do anything. I didn't hit a a jumper. I didn't hit a layup. Everything was a dunk. I didn't score anything but a dunk. Named that Shaq of The Mac, and that's where it came from.
And
that was the only game he had came to, though.
Oh, really?
That was the only game he came to. So he saw me dunk like 9 times, and that was the only game he came to as far as I knew. Because you know how when the Sports Illustrated people come, you know, they're traveling with the team, they're talking to people, they're doing their insight thing. So that was the only game that I knew of him to come to as far as that. So after that game, you know, all the dunks, that's what he left for that.
And that nickname stuck so well. And to this day, people consider you the greatest Ohio University player of all time.
Yeah, man. You know, I worked pretty hard. I mean, the stats show it, the accolades show it from an individual standpoint, but also, you know, we won as a team and we had some accomplishments. I got ranked up pretty high. You know, I think we might have got to ranked 11th in the nation. So, you know, we did a lot of solid things there, man. So, you know, it was a great time, and it was another stepping stone situation in my life that was one of the greatest for me.
What was that feeling like on draft night after everything that you had gone through in your childhood coming up to now? Because for a lot of NBA players, that's that moment they dreamed of their entire lives.
I always would say that I was going to go to the league, you know, just in a more of a trash talk state. Like my freshman year, I had told Coach, you know, I had a 7'2" teammate. His name was Jason Terry. And I told Coach, me and Jason out of here in 2 years. You know, that was always my little thing. You know, we leaving, you know, just talking trash, not really knowing that, you know, because first off, I'm at OU, you know, last person to even go pro out of the MAC conference was Ron Harper. That was 10 years, 11 years before I did it. So it wasn't like the MAC was a hotbed for pros. Get one team in the tournament and no TV games by nobody except the 2 teams in the conference championship. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's not like they're probably going to air that game on the NCAA tournament because you're probably coming in at the 15th, 16th seed. You know, it was a long shot dream and just a bunch of real talking trash. It became a point where the opportunity became real. It was at the end of my freshman year. USA Today came out with the top 5 freshmen. They had Othello Harrington, Scotty Thurman, Johnny Rhodes, Jason Kidd, and myself. And when I saw that, that was like the first time that I ever really saw that I really might have a chance, because you know, these guys was McDonald's All-Americans. You know, Jason Kidd was like, I think, number 1 or 2 coming out in our class in high school. So it was like I missed out on all the McDonald's stuff. I missed out on all those Nike camps. Well, it was 5-star back then that those guys had established their names. And now at the end of our freshman year, I'm right where everybody was. You know, I'm in this top 5 freshman class of guys that have graduated. So to me, I was like, man, if I keep doing this in 4 years, I could be in the top 10. So I ended up leaving my 3rd year and was the 11th pick. But I felt like once I saw that I had a real opportunity.
With the 11th pick in the 1995 NBA draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Gary Trent from Ohio University.
The moment David Stern called your name on draft night, what's the emotion that came over you after all that?
The emotion that came over me was more like, you know, stood up, you know, you're nervous, waiting, wondering where you're going to go because, you know, you hear your projections. You know, I heard projections all the way from 5 to 15, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, while you're waiting on all that, it becomes to, you're not sure. But then once you're about to get drafted, all the cameras start gathering around your table when you're like the next pick because they know it turns into now you know, and now you can feel it. And it starts getting butterflies and things of that nature. And when he called my name, I just stood up and I stood straight up. And just so happened, my dad stood straight up. And when we hugged, the chair was kind of like under us. We kind of like fell down and whatnot. So it was a great moment, man. And a life-changing moment.
So does your friend Kevin still own the men's shop? And is that where Junior gets his style from too?
Just awfully nice tonight, but you gotta remember, Milwaukee changed the color from green to purple.
Well, I had a friend at home named Kevin. He owned this place called the Men's Shop. And he hooked me up with a couple of pieces, you know, that I wore last night and today. So here to represent.
Nah, my man Kev had, you know, he had went away, you know what I'm saying? They shut the shop down, fair time came around, all that type of stuff. So they, you know, the shop, that don't exist no more, but he did have some pieces in there. But he's still at home. You know, it's always been love. He was just getting it how he was getting it at that point in time. But, you know, my son more or less got the fashion because my mom was a booster when I was a kid, and we knew a lot of boosters. You know what a booster is?
Yeah.
Most people think that's the people at alumni at school, but where I come from, the booster is a person who always shoplift. You know, they shoplift and fence clothes and things like that. So, you know, as a youngster, we had a lot of family members that was boosters and whatnot. So they had hit the mall and any type of store, and CCTV and all that wasn't around in the 80s like it was, and all this surveillance and all that. So people could literally just walk in and walk out. And I had so many clothes that she just always used to dress me all the time. Plus, you know, my mom is the oldest of 7. So she the first one to have kids. I'm the first grandson, the first nephew. I'm the oldest cousin of all the cousins. So, everybody wanted to touch me, kiss me, hold me, because I'm the first baby to the family. You know what I'm saying? My dad was the youngest of 3, and his 2 older siblings didn't have any kids. So I'm like the first on both sides of everything. So as far as clothes and whatnot, everybody that was hustling, through outfits my way as a baby and a kid and all that. And, that was just something my mom always liked to do. And, as my son was coming up, when I was playing when he was a baby, she put him in them little suits and wanted to take him to church for Easter and all that type of stuff. So she been putting him in that stuff. And then he wore a uniform at school. So he was always used to wearing a belt and, wearing a collared shirt and, keeping himself presentable and whatnot.
Yeah. When I saw that old draft footage, with the lime green suit, I'm like, okay, this explains a lot. Like father, like son when it comes to the drip, right?
Well, I was always like colorful, Rod Strickland, Harvey Grant, Cliff Robinson, them guys, Hollywood Robinson. When I first came into the league, I came in, I got pink suits, I got pink gators, lime green gator, I got all the flavors, everything you want. Hey, listen, I came in with it. So when I used to be coming to the games, they used to sit there like, let's see what he gonna wear today. You know what I'm saying? Because I used to be coming with it. And this is back when guys, was wearing suits. Jordan was wearing all the suits. So we was wearing a suit and tie legs and all that. It was time, man. I used to be coming with it. And then once I started doing this dressed up every game, dressing up every night, they started looking at it like, hold up. So basically, here's how this works. Here's how the dress up work, man. So you're going I come back from shoot around, shower, eat, lay down. So I get up, get dressed, put my suit on, get on the bus. Bus ride gonna be 20 minutes or less. By the time I put my suit on and get out the hotel, I'm gonna get to the arena and have the suit on probably 30 minutes. You're gonna get to the arena, you're gonna hang it up, put on your workout gear, go work out, get warmed up, do what you do with the trainer, do what you do on the floor with the coach. I come back in there, I shower, get my uniform on, get ready to play. Go play the game. After the game, shower, put the suit on, get on the bus, might do an interview, get on the bus, drive to the hotel, or after the game, drive back home. So I'm like, man, hold up. I'm putting on custom-made three-piece joints, spending, $1,500, $2,000 a suit, and I'm putting this suit on, sending it to the dry cleaners. I'm putting this suit on for like 40 minutes just to ride in the car in it or on the bus in it. You know what I'm saying? So then it got to the point where me, Rashid, and a few guys just start packing sweatsuits. Mm-hmm. So I'm just packing sweatsuits. I'm wearing sweatsuits to the game and I'm wearing sweatsuits home. And then whatever clothes I packed on the road so I could go out. You know what I'm saying? If I went to a restaurant or a nightclub, whatever, my clothes became for out in society. I'm done dressing up for the games. You know what I'm saying? It was just too many games and just too many clothes and taking 2-3 suitcases. One suitcase got shoes in it. One suitcase got suits in it. One suitcase might have coats in it. You know what I'm saying? It's just because you're traveling with a team. So I can take 3 bags on here, take 3 suitcases full of gear and just decide fashion show style how I want to hit the streets wherever I touch down at. You know what I'm saying? Because I can take 3 suitcases. I'm not paying for them, not carrying them. I leave them on the runway. The airline guys grab them. You get to the land where you're going. The team grab them. You just leave them behind. You just get to your room and they already in your room. So luggage wasn't even a hassle.
So obviously you can't say yourself, but who was the best dressed coming up when you were in the league? You can't say yourself because I know that's the easy answer.
You mean in the league?
Yeah.
Oh, man, you had Mike doing it. Mike was dressing, every night. Kevin Willis. That's back when they used to be having the best dress argument. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them old heads got, the competition. A lot of old heads came through dressing like that. You know what I'm saying? So, it was a lot of guys that was pretty clean out there. As far as the teams I was on, Cliff Robinson used to put it on decent. Cliff put it on. Rod dressed up decent at times. Harvey Grant, there was a few veterans on the team. They had a little extra money. Buck Williams kept on some decent suits and whatnot. So, we had some guys that was dressing on our team and whatnot. I think the style of today, is not so much about suits and hard bottoms now. It's just about how fresh you look and how clean you look. You know what I'm saying? Because at one point in time, you couldn't be at a press conference if you didn't have a suit jacket on and things like that. Or you were wrong. It was like, you didn't wear the suit jacket, you wrong. Where no, you just weren't wrong. Just people wanted to be comfortable. So then it kind of graduated to teams making sweaters or teams making logos. Now, when you do a press conference, you can just wear the team stuff and it's still presentable but more relaxed, fit, and dressed.
In terms of because I know you were only on the Raptors for half a season, in terms of that team, who was the best dressed that wasn't yourself?
Who we had on that team? Really, we had a bunch of young guys. Them guys wasn't really dressing like that,
So you want to put Alvin on that list?
I mean, you had John Wallace, you had Marcus Camby, John Thomas. Alvin was still young. He hadn't really built it. Alvin didn't have that big bag yet. Alvin didn't have that big 40-plus bag yet, right? So, his wardrobe was still a little college-ish. He had a couple dollars from coming to the league. He had that young money, so he grabbed him a few little pieces, some collar shirts. But once he got his money, he got clean. I started seeing him hard-bottom suits, tie. He started getting clean then. Like he looked down on the game. We was all young, man, and we was really trying to find our way basketball-wise. And, we wasn't even really sweating the dress code.
Obviously, your influence when it comes to fashion was big on your teammates and everything. But I feel like another player that you had a big influence on, Dirk Nowitzki, who was your rookie in Dallas. He started out shy, and then you helped build his confidence. I'm going to bring up one word, and I want you to tell me the significance behind that word and what it pertains to Dirk Nowitzki. Burger.
Dirk was a German kid, and he was a teen, and he came up against a lot of negative doubters because nobody had really saw him play in anything except the USA function, like AAU type of thing. So, to take him that high of a pick, people were doubting him and doubting Nelly's decision. And, when you start labeling the next Larry Bird type and this and that, and nobody had seen a true 7-footer, and Dirk was a 7-footer. When he locked his elbow, he put a hell of an arch on his shot. He put a big arch on his shot. So nobody had really seen that. And, coming from Europe, he had to adjust to the physicality of the game. I think that's the biggest thing for European players is the level of physicality. Physicality and the speed is big for them because you can tell at the Olympics at one point in time, the big gap that we had, that's not the same anymore because all those foreign players are playing over here currently. So when they get back to the Olympics, it's all NBA speed. We're not the only people playing at NBA speed and physicality. But the burger was more like when you just was done. Nothing you can do about it. Like, how when you hear Shaq holler the barbecue chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah, to that effect, But, man, Dirk turned out, got all the naysayers wrong, and he got a whole country of Germans behind him and believing in him. And, he was always a good guy, man.
That became a part of his trash talk vernacular, thanks to you.
He needed that. At one point in time, he was just shy and didn't know how to be accepted. And, you come over from your country and nobody speaks what you speak, and you don't know who to gravitate to and whatnot. So he needed that. And I always used to make the little joke with him. I used to tell him, Dirk, you got to get your game up. I'm like, listen, man, you want to help save the brothers in the league? I said, I was telling him we need another Larry Bird, man. I was like, if you don't get your game up, the white fans ain't going to support us. I was like, Dirk, you got to get your game up, man. You got to get your game up. We need another Larry Bird. That was all my little joke to him, you know what I'm saying? But, he turned out doing his thing, but that was our little joke on the team. Like, man, we need another Larry Bird.
It's funny, you were joking about that, but a couple of years later, he's considered probably one of the greatest power forwards of all time now, which is
well, man, he used to be sitting there and he'd be reading the magazines, right? And they'd be saying all this, Dirk's going to make Don Nelson look stupid, this and that. And I used to be like, Dirk, fuck that. Stop reading that. And the one time I slapped it out his hand. Like, stop reading that. You know what I'm saying? Just stop reading that because he's young and he's rookie. And he used to sit next to me on a plane and he used to tell me how to eat. Because one time he told me, if my mother saw you put ketchup on that salmon, she would kill you. You know what I'm saying? So then another time he tell me, listen, you cannot eat peanut butter and jelly together. You have to eat peanut butter or you have to eat all. I'm like, no, that's not how I grew up doing it. You know what I'm saying? So, we had a lot of fun times on the airplane, man. Telling me how to eat and whatnot, things like that.
It goes to show how important like a veteran's influence is on a rook because you never know. That rook might turn out to be the next Larry Bird, right?
Hey, he was cold. He turned out to be cold, whatever he was. But, not even the next Larry Bird. He turned out to be the first Dirk because it's a lot of kids that he influenced and a lot of players that he influenced where he from and in the NBA. Like really being a 7-footer stretching the floor for real. Like Dirk will post up, mid post, deep post. The favorite was to ice him at foul line area. Once he arch up and shoot the rainbow joint on you, it was hard to stop.
That's him building that confidence in himself, right?
Yeah.
What rap music did you put him on? Because now Dirk's like this big hip hop movie guy type thing. And I'm hearing it started with you. So I got to know, like, what were you putting on, Dirk?
Man, we just was listening to everything at that point in time because this was like 99. So whatever was hot, probably Jay-Z, DMX was hot at that time. So whatever was the hottest thing, we played that. Another guy who used to dress well, for real, speaking of that, was Mike Finley.
Oh, yeah.
He grew up in Chicago, grew up watching Jordan. He was a chocolate type, you know what I'm saying? So He felt Jordan was a chocolate type. You know, Mike Finley was a chocolate type. So, you know, he used to dress clean all the time, too. And Mike was a guy who used to dress when we travel. You know, we travel, we're behind the scenes. So a lot of cats throwing on sweats, tennis shoes. Mike might have a custom piece on. You know, Mike Finley was another guy. He was one of the young guys from our era who used to dress clean. I used to be teasing him all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, Mike, you know, just teasing. But, yeah, you know, he stayed clean, too. You know, he used to ride clean. So he felt like a real player out there.
How would you compare, if we're talking about style, current guys dressing in the league now compared to like back then? Who dresses better?
Well, you know, first off, and I know I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, bro. I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, but there's just some things I just can't agree with. And because I don't agree with it, that's just my opinion, you know. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to have to say my era.
Of course,
you know what I'm saying? Because besides Dennis Rodman, really everybody wasn't wearing dresses and all that type of shenanigans. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, you know, we was in suits. You know, in our era, cats didn't wear the tennis shoes with the suits. You wore the hard bottoms with the suits and whatnot. But I think the fashion has evolved to where you can stay fresh and you don't have to be in a necktie, suit and tie. You know, I still wear suits and ties, but, you know, I can still get that same impression off without having to be feeling stuffy in a stuffy outfit. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, all this dressing up in these dresses and all that, man, that shit got to stop. Straight up.
We were talking about like burgers and like food and all that stuff. Yo, it's making me hungry a little bit. What was Junior's go-to Subway sandwich growing up?
Oh, man, just simple turkey. Just a turkey sandwich, mayonnaise, lettuce, tomatoes. I just meet him at school with it, get the Subway joint, get him a drink, and feed him after school. You know, to me, it was, you know, a lot of times environments mean things, right? So to me, I'm not going to drive all the way to his school, pick him up, take him home to do the homework at the kitchen table, and then drive you off to practice. It was unnecessary. To me, it's like working out at home. You ever know anybody that has a gym at home, how they train and how you'll train differently if you go to an actual gym where there's other people? Because, you know, a lot of times you may go in there and feed off the energy. There's days I go to the gym and I might be dragging. Then I look over and I see some guys really getting it in, some sweat, and somebody getting some cardio hard, or I hear the steel over here, and then I just feed off that and take off, you know? So to me, I just would meet him at the school, find an empty classroom, feed him right there, and do his homework right there, because that building was to keep you in a certain mindset, you know, like this is a place of work. This is a place of academics. So when you're up under this roof, I just wanted to keep him in that state of mind. Just fed him the sandwich, and we will finish his homework before practice, because, you know, you're getting up at 7 in the morning. You're going to go to practice 6 to 8. By the time you come home and eat, that's a child. You're going to be running on mental and physical fumes. I'm not going to get you to be able to concentrate and do no math or do anything that's real strenuous. You can tell when kids are tired, man. Listen, I did behavior intervention for many years, and I know my kids are tired, because you say something like, what's 2 plus 2? 4. Okay. What's 3 plus 3? 5? Like just anything, because they're tired, man. They're tired. What you say? Then they just start guessing. You just know your kids are tired. So it just was, to me, it was important just to meet that, get the academics done before you went to practice.
Those same principles that you applied, did those go into his basketball training too? You had him dribble around a track for a year, you know, at 5. Then he started shooting 6 at 7. And then from there, it was progressively, you kept adding things to his game. Do those principles come from that too?
Well, I started adding as I learned drills. You know, when I first retired, and here's what a lot of people misunderstand about people that have played professional sports. When I first retired, I was a great player development guy because I knew all the moves you needed to have to succeed in basketball. I knew what footwork was needed. I knew when the spin move was needed. I knew all those things. You know, for me going to camps and playing against Tim Duncan and having Kevin Garnett as a teammate, and I went to a lot of big man footwork camps throughout my career. They used to call this Pete Newell's big man camp. David Robinson, Dream, a lot of people went through there. So, you know, I learned a lot of that stuff. But being able to coach is different than being able to player develop. You know, it's easy to teach and download skills, but coaching, you need some strategy and after timeout plays and things of that nature. So I got better as a coach, but I was always A1 on the development side because I had a clear understanding of how to develop people as far as, you know, on the sporting side. We just stuck to the habits of development. And as I saw as a kid, sometimes you got to gauge how hard you can push them, because you can push one kid at 10, some kids at 7. It just depends. So by this being my first son, and I'm a young father, and I'm trying to figure him out as well. There was times I went too hard on the gas, and then there would be times I might back up. So I had to gauge him emotionally. And the biggest thing, man, with getting a kid early involved in something like my kids now, it's easier to sell, but to get them to buy in to the responsibility of it. Because what you're trying to do is ask a child. You're trying to get a child child to really put in a 15, 16-year internship with no guarantee at the end.
No guarantee of going to the league, yeah.
With no guarantee of nothing. So basically, you're going to take a 4 to 6-year-old and tell them, hey, you're going to train 3 to 5 days a week, 2 to 3 hours at a pop, tournaments on the weekends. You'll do this 8, 9 months a year for the next 10 to 15 years, and you might not get none out of it. That's a hard sell. A lot of times, a lot of kids that surround kids like that are not in that space. So, on the weekends, kids are having birthday parties. My son got 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. If he goes to that birthday party on Friday night as a 5th grader, stay up all night, eating cake and ice cream, go to bed late, his weekend is done as far as his tournament. So what I would have to do is to balance that out is next weekend we don't have a tournament. So I'll tell him, hey, take 2 or 3 of your friends from that birthday party. Tell them next weekend they come stay over at the house. We'll go to Chuck E. Cheese or we'll go to the movies or we'll do something like that so that I could balance him out and he still had his childhood without feeling like he was missing out on a lot of things because I'm still trying to get you to buy into this unlimited internship that you don't know if it's really going to come to what you want it to be. You know how many people have invested that type of time and only made it to the G League or didn't make it at all? You know what I'm saying?
That's why it was important you gave him that balance because it made him realize, like, oh, you can still enjoy the person being a child, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like a job at that point, right? Because at the end of the day, you want basketball to be fun for them. If it stops being fun for them, it's not going to get them anywhere, right?
Or not so much as that. I didn't want him to feel like basketball was taking him away from fun.
Okay.
And if he feels like basketball is taking him away from fun, that could make him not want to do basketball. You know what I'm saying? Because he loved working out and he still does it this day. He loved the grind part of it, loves the drills, loved the work, loved doing all of that. At the end of the day, that's the only thing you have. When you're not getting playing time on the court, when coach is overlooking you, when you're not getting any run, you're not getting your number called, the only thing you got is your individual workouts to keep your faith in yourself because you watch your ball go through the rim 1,000 times today, 800 times tomorrow, 700 times tomorrow, because there'll be point in times in your career you may question yourself. You may question, am I good enough or is my shot good enough or this or that? But that's how you reinforce confidence in yourself. You have to have something to believe in and you have to be working. Your work is what you will have to believe in.
Did you buy lottery numbers at all when he got traded to Toronto? Because the coincidence of that is probably like 1 in a million. Exact same season, 41 games in. You can't write that.
Man, listen, I don't think that could have happened if they staged it. The only way it could have happened is just how it did. It was crazy just with the whole Blazer thing, with the whole trade thing. Like that whole first 3 years was just too much. And it was crazy because my son went to the Raptors kind of under the same conditions. They were looking to rebuild and reload how they were doing things over there. Now, mind you, they were coming off championships and things of that nature, and they were a better team because at this point in time, when I'm going to the Raptors, they're still only 3 years in existence. So that means the first 2 years of the league, they still were in haywire because if in the 3rd year of existence, you firing the coach, selling the team, trading away Damon, your first draft pick ever, so that means the first 3 years, it was just a whirlwind over there. They was just still figuring it out. They just still didn't know what they were doing. They couldn't have. You still going through too much startup after 3 years of starting up.
Obviously it's important as a father to spend time with your son, but since he was your first, a lot of trial and error went into that, right? But why was it just as important for you?
Man, it was important for me because there was a lot of things I did not have as a child and a lot of things that I understood that when you don't have them as a child, what it can do to you, where it can lead your life, how it shapes your thinking. So to me, I felt like I had to be in every phase of my son's life to help shape his thinking, to help shape his spirit, to help shape his understanding. And to be honest with you, I have 4 sons, right? Nobody on this planet has hugged, kissed, talked to, made more eye contact, been in the car more, breathed the same air more, nobody than me with my 4 sons. Nobody has sat them on the lap more than them because I wasn't having it first off. And, I've been retired since, my 3 little ones were born. So with that being said, and then I retired when JR was young. So with that being said, I've been available to go to my kids' school and have lunch with them and be around them when nobody else could be around them, whether their mother was at work. And I've been in a very, very fortunate position to be able to, as a father, log that many minutes and moments and hours around my children because, man, realistically, your kids separate from you before they move out. Once your kids get 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and they want to go to the football game on the weekends and they want to hang with their friends or they get a girlfriend or they start traveling with teams and things like that, that's the first baby steps of your child becoming what they are and separation comes. You know what I'm saying? saying? I knew when JR, when he went to prep school, I told myself, man, damn, like my son will never come home again. Never. Because I knew once he went to prep school, he's going to college. And once I knew he went to college, I knew he was going pro. So I knew my son was never coming home again. So I had to swallow that, like, damn, my son's never coming home. You know, as my first son and my only child for about 10 years, you know, my second son is 10 years behind him. So, you know, it was a lot in dealing with that and understanding that, but it taught me even more to log those minutes, those seconds, going up to my kid's school. I'll pull up to my kid's school sometimes, right? I'll pull up to the school and sign in and go watch them through the window in the hallway. They wouldn't even know. Then when they come home, I'll tell them how I saw you laying on the rug, how I saw you goofing off, how I saw you flick your homeboy on the ear and playing in class, like, because they didn't know how I was knowing all this. They thinking the teacher calling me, but no, I'll pull up and just watch you through the window and then wait till you get home. So I've logged every possible moment I can, man, because I'm never going to get those back.